This Q&A is operated by volunteers and does not directly represent the Venus Project. The content presented here is for educational purposes only. For more information, please visit thevenusproject.com.
Hello everyone and welcome to Q&A number 6. Before we get started, we'd like to introduce our panelists from left to right.
Am I left?
Yes.
Okay, then I will start. My name is Michael and I'm POC for Germany.
My name is Risto Kantonen. I'm POC for Finland.
I'm Maja Petrovic and I'm POC for Croatia.
And I'm Sasha Luznar and I'm POC for Slovenia.
Okay, let's get to the questions. So, first one. TVP is constantly evolving due to current environmental and social conditions. What current options are there now for implementation of TVP philosophy in a methodical way? From Christopher Scott, Los Angeles.
Let me start. I think that in principle the TVP philosophy is collected by the lectures by Jacques and the books, and I guess to implement this in a methodical way would be first have a person which has educated his or herself with the topic so that he or she does well know the topic, and then you could gather your friends or other people together and explain and discuss with them, for example, the lectures or the books or chapters of the books. I guess it is currently developed by Philip Ivanov, is it right?
Yes, that's correct. Philip is working on a educational program.
Okay, and I guess once this education program is set up, it would be, in my opinion, the best way to proceed.
Yeah, I agree that we need a comprehensive educational program that has been designed to bring everyone as close to on the same page as possible in terms of TVP and RBE knowledge, so that our methods and procedures of informing people are as well thought out and uniform as possible.
Maybe if I can add one thing, do not underestimate the value of discussion. What we have experienced here during our panel preparation is that during discussions, if you discuss topics very deeply, there are a lot of questions, but also a lot of answers will come.
Yeah, there are different directions you can look at a question, and the discussion is important because people might have a different direction to it, and that you hadn't thought out, and that way you get a, share information and idea about that particular area, and then your frame of reference to that subject matter becomes broader. Any other input for that question? Okay, next one. To me, I understand the vast majority of the Venus Project and have been following for about 4 years online. I'm interested in becoming a POC in Massachusetts. Anyway, are there any other ways for people to contribute to the Venus Project besides education? From Marc Legere, Boston, MA.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to try and address that in two parts, basically, as the question is stated. First of all, for all the people that would like to become a POC, I would ask them to send us an email to admin@tvpactivism.com. Right now we have an educational program for POCs in place that has been going on for the last 3.5 months, and we've had the first candidates are kind of getting towards the end of this this educational program. We try and improve it as we go. So that's basically one thing, especially if you already have the knowledge, if you've been following TVP for, like you said, for years online, then you know, that's the way to go. And then there's the second part of the question, which is what are the other ways to contribute next to education? First of all, I think that education is kind of the foremost thing that you can do. So that's kind of the first and most important thing. And then there is also some projects that are more that have more concrete results, and one of them is translations and transcriptions for the linguistic team, which is very important work. And right now a big project has started for translating the Jacques book, The Best That Money Can Buy, in as many languages as possible. So that's definitely one of the things that you can start cooperating with us right away. So that's one thing. And then there's a couple of other teams that are constantly, you know, working on their own stuff, which is Venus Expressions Media. And then we also have the scientific and technical database that you can apply to, and you will be contacted if you have some special knowledges and expertise in scientific areas, and you'll be contacted when a project arises that, you know, needs people of that expertise. So there is a lot of possibilities how to get involved.
It would be best if you send an email to admin@tvpactivism.com and send us your preferences, your CV, what kind of things you like to do, so we can direct you further.
Yeah. As much information as possible. That would be great.
Okay. Any more input for that? I guess no.
Maybe also check if there's already a group in your region. You might get contact them, and they might have already running projects locally.
Yeah, I think that would be coordinated through tvpactivism.com. That is admin@tvpactivism.com.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So the next one. To expand, I think besides using motion picture and word of mouth as a means to educate the masses, I think there should be a way for people, scientists and engineers, now to communicate on an open source platform, a forum related to TVP Architecture. And this is from the same person, Marc Legere, Boston, MA.
Yeah, that's another question that's kind of similar, but we've decided to address it separately. Basically, it's the problem is about open source platform, and first of all, it's very hard to know what that person means by an open source platform, because there's a lot of interpretations of open source. And secondly, we don't have anything against communication between scientists and engineers and everything. That's always encouraged, but I think that it would be best, if possible, to make a project that is within the Venus project. So basically, have a proposal for a project laid out, maybe send it in an email. Put as much information and ideas as you can in it, as concretely as possible what you would like to do, especially if that's something that you yourself would like to be leading, which would be great. And then send it to admin@thevenusproject.com. So that's where all these ideas that are then forwarded to either Jacques or Roxanne or one of the admins, global admins, would have a possibility to start a project like that.
Okay.
All right.
And then there's also there has been discussion about open source ideas and ideology before. We do have a official response from that discussion earlier, and that will be included as a reference in the video description later on. The next question is, which is the best way to talk about TVP and RBE to refugees and homeless people and bring them hope about the future and ask them being active in this transition process instead of they keep feeling like parasite of charity forever? Well, this is a very delicate matter, but let's put it this way. Homeless people let me start again. It depends on the person, so you would have to assess the situation on a case-by-case basis. Basically, look at what their physical and mental state is. If, for example, a person has been without food and water for several days, and what their mental condition is, they're not in a position to help in the transition process. But the problem with this question is, of course, what you mean by the word active. In terms of being, in other terms of being active in the transition process, because we will be helping people, so they will be active in terms of getting helped. But as of right now, I do not consider refugees and homeless people being able to help in the transition process. And it is also very possible that they would not be physically and mentally in condition to be very receptive to TVP and RBE message, because that is not their immediate need.
Yes, if I may add something, Risa.
Sure.
Yeah, so if you work in a refugee camp or a homeless shelter and you are in contact with those people on daily basis, and you have ability to create some kind of workshops or learning groups with them, you should provide them with tangible material to learn from and to share amongst each other. And always make sure to listen to them and to ask them questions and try to put their problems, their concrete problems, in the context of RBE and how would RBE solve their problems, something that they can understand.
Yes, in other words, if you have managed to conclude that they are receptive to the message that you would give about TVP and RBE, then I think, or the best possible approach that I can think is education. So provide access to TVP education material, like the stuff that is on the library set, or showing them Paradise or Oblivion, or whatever is possible in that area. Okay, next question. Yeah. There were some recent protests in Brazil, people wanting changes there, but as usual, they seem to be completely lost about what they really want. Which would be the best methods and procedures to spread about TVP and RBE among them efficiently. This is somewhat similar to the question that came before, but so first you would have to engage in observing and kind of like surveying their value and behavioral background, asking them questions about what they think about politics, and generally asking them questions that give you idea about what their values are, and then based on the answers that they give you, you can formulate questions and your message in the way that would fit their means, you know. Sorry, in their, so that answering the questions and giving your message in their terms that they can understand it. So
yeah.
Okay. Several parts of the world are still having riots in protest of their government's misdeeds and or ineptitude. While I abhor violence and believe that we may have reached a tipping point in favor of the Venus Project as the populations of more nations, and that unfortunately was cut off due to character restrictions in the moderator system. So
yeah,
I'm assuming that populations of more nations are getting fed up with the system. And this is from Tom Brent, Dallas.
Yeah, and there's the second part of the question by the same person, so we might as well read that one too. It says, of course, we don't hear about it on the news in the US, which appalls me. I've just heard about the riots in Turkey. And then at the end, a question, are we winning? First, I would like to address the riots and protests, since we've had them here in Slovenia too, and maybe Michael and Risto can then kind of present the other side of the coin, so to speak. So we've had riots here, and I've actually talked to quite a few people that were very involved in not organizing, but you know, with groups and things like that. And we've actually had a short interview with a person that has been involved with organizing revolutions, quote unquote, before. And you know, the thing that everybody has in common is that there is no what comes next move. So basically there is I have not yet talked to a person like that has a very good idea as to what would you want to do after you change something. Let's say this is not good, but what do you do afterwards? And that's kind of the problem, that nobody's really thinking far enough in advance. So I would like to address the tipping point. I think we're nowhere near the tipping point yet, and for multiple reasons. But you know, especially if you're talking about tipping point towards the Venus Project, then you know, I think that's some ways away, because there is rarely anybody in these movements, or whatever you want to call them, is talking about changes on global level, especially the holistic changes that we talk about. So I don't think that tipping point and the last question about winning, you know, it's not a match that we win, but I think we're quite a long way away from anything remotely similar to winning.
Yeah. maybe I could start giving more points to this. You try to consider maybe do some research on the social state of different areas of the world. For example, in Finland, we still have relatively low unemployment. People have free access to education, relatively low homelessness rate, free healthcare. Things are just basically far too well here, so that there's no tipping point of any kind, even in terms of collapse, let alone the advocacy of TVP in Finland. So, and also the point is that there's no winners or losers, basically. That means that a dualistic point of view, like good and bad. We're all human beings, and whatever happens, it all affects everyone on this planet.
I would like to reinforce Sasha's statement a little and maybe add something, which is if you speak about the tipping point in the favor of TVP, there might be, like in Egypt or Turkey maybe, that there might be regionally a tipping point in respect to the local government conditions, for example. But in order to be in favor of TVP, the idea of the resource-based economy and the whole alternative TVP proposes has to be implemented in the people's heads before all this happens. Because if the people are not aware of the alternatives, and I assume that most of the people in Egypt and Turkey are not aware of the alternative we propose, then they don't have any chance to actually fall to tip into that direction. There might be a tipping point, but they cannot fall into the direction because they are not aware of the alternative. That's why it's important to have implemented first the idea and to make awareness of the alternative before this can be in any good in favor of our proposals.
Right. And also one other point comes to mind, which is that I find it to be highly likely that there will first be multiple failures in terms of revolution, which you can now see in Turkey, that there will be multiple revolutions and they will all fail, and until people get enough of those events, then they start to question every aspect of their thinking and seek answers from different directions. So people also first need to be on a thinking level receptive to new directions, such as the Venus Project.
And if I may add, just want to summarize all this that you said. The Venus Project itself is aware that protests and demonstrations are not right way to come to the RBE. So if you really understand and if you learn about the Venus Project, you will come to conclusion that simply by protesting and putting down some government, this guy or that guy, won't essentially change the conditions in your country. So it's not about protesting and throwing off some president. It's about the way of thinking and behaving in this society that will change it from within, little by little, not by, I don't know, cutting off somebody's head that does nothing, because the change we need is on all levels of your thinking, behaving, living, and on the level the states are governed right now. So there will be no states, there will be no government, there will be no president. So that's what you have to understand first before you say that it's a tipping point towards TVP. It's far from it, unfortunately.
All right. We can move to the next one, I suppose.
Yep.
What requirements will be required for successful learning for children? I personally think people should have to take a sport, survival class, maybe 2, science, math, and maybe common sense. This is from Echanova, Missouri. Well, depends on what we mean by successful, and if we mean that it will be successful in terms of supporting the human condition in the best possible way we know how at that time, then it means that we need to study human behavior and, you know, all aspects of society, and then design an environment which meets the relevant educational needs of each person, tailor-made as closely as possible. And it will not be paid based on anyone's opinion, such as, I think people should take this and this. It will be based on what that person needs. And there will be some form of procedural systems through which we can determine what the relevant educational needs of each individual are.
And as Jacques always says, we have to create an interactive surroundings for kids to learn. So kids will be encouraged to do things themselves, to think, to question everything that is put out for them. So it will be different than it is now, where you must learn something and then you are tested for it. It's not that kind. I can see that this person has somewhat similar image of education, because here is sports, survival class, again classes. It's not how it will be concepted. Education in the Venus Project, it will be different, and it will depend on the child's needs and wants, and I don't know what the child wants to learn actually.
Right. So positive reinforcement instead of negative reinforcement.
That's right.
In terms of we don't tell you that you need to learn this, this, and this about history.
Yeah, you will be encouraged to learn it.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Next one. Do you think that creating a centralized language would help in creating a stronger and more interconnected society? From Surfati 996, Washington, D.C.
Okay, this is an extremely difficult and very good question, actually, because we have seen already during our preparations that you can actually talk a lot about language. And there are many different levels and many different aspects of it. So first I want to ask, what type of language do you mean? There are several. There's spoken word, there is written word, there is mimic, there's gestures. There are so many different ways of language and communication. So the question, if you try to formulate it differently, the question would be maybe more like, what type of language is helpful in which particular situation? When we for example, we find that if you consider math as a language, it is very helpful in scientific surroundings, of course. If you talk to other people in daily life talk, you wouldn't talk mathematically, so to speak. So the question really is, we should develop some a set of different languages and try to figure out which language applies to which situation.
Right. So basically, I think it is likely that sometime in the future we will design a number of languages, not just a language, but number of languages for specific function and different areas, instead of just having thousands of languages that are very haphazardly evolved over time. But it's a very difficult and good question, if I might add. So there's very many aspects of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with this question when we were preparing for this. So you know, one of the possible outcomes is also that, you know, it's just going to be under constant evolving, as far as it's going to become definitely, I think, more scientific and with more precise reference points, and basically just to have it be more concrete, so that it's that to make it more difficult to be have misconceptions and you know, just misunderstandings and things like that. So but yeah, the question is very broad, and it's it can be answered in a lot of ways, or in a 2-hour debate.
Yeah.
Right.
What we came to conclusion is that language is used to communicate, so it's a tool of communication, and we can see that the more languages there are, the more difficult it is to exchange information and ideas if you don't know the language of the other person. So if you have a unified language, you can exchange ideas and information more efficiently. So it will be more efficient, and it will have more physical reference to the environment and people's needs, so it will be more concrete than the languages we have today, which are really big subject to interpretation. It's just every word can be interpreted in many different ways. So in that sense, it's inefficient, and there will be design of other languages that will be better in that sense.
Right. And there's also a whole chapter, I believe, in the book, The Best That Money Can't Buy. So we will reference that and in the description of the video. So if you have the book, you can look into it.
It's called Language of Relevance. It's a 3rd chapter.
Okay. Right. And then, yeah.
That's one. Nope.
Okay. In the TVP cities, would murals on central domes, maglev stations be considered nothing things, or something needed, comfortable and welcome in the interior design as a whole? What are Jacques' thoughts about this? From Nitro Ferrano, Portugal.
So we cannot say what are exactly Jacques' thoughts. We can only say what we understand about TVP so far. So there will be no integrated art only for aesthetic purpose in the designs of the cities. So only if murals have some educational message, maybe, then they will be integrated. Only for aesthetic purposes, no. Arts, on the other hand, will be encouraged in some galleries, and people will be able to, will be granted access to all the tools they need to express in artistic kind of ways, but it won't be integrated in the design. So like we have now, first you design the building, how it should look like, and then you think about whether it's efficient, whether it's sustainable, whether it's good for the environment. So in the RBE it will be different. You will have to think about those things first, and the aesthetics is just not important when efficiency comes in mind.
Right. So, in other words, aesthetics will not be part of physical design inherently, but we will have systems that meet people's social needs during the transition, such as, you know, art galleries, concerts maybe, things like that. Mm-hmm. But in physical design, specifically, no. So to answer directly to the question, yes, I believe Chuck would consider these as nothing things. Next question. Why haven't you really started to construct a proto-city, not just a research center? Looking at the scientific and technical database, it seems to be quite large. Looking with a statistic eye, that tells me there are enough resources and skilled people to begin. From Marcel, Netherlands.
Yes, this question states that looking with a statistic eye, there are enough resources and skilled people to begin. I would like to briefly explain why this is exactly not the case, because yeah, granted, I've seen also the technical database and it's quite large, but in terms of resources, we don't have money, thus we cannot afford the building materials we need for the city. We cannot, this accounts for basically every initially needed resource. And most importantly, we do not have the management infrastructure yet. There is no point of having a scientific database of 5,000 people when there is no management infrastructure behind it which can distribute these people and dedicate them to certain projects. So it's good. It is extremely good to have this database, but we are not at this point yet to actually engage in a project with this on this scale.
Yeah.
Right.
Another thing, basically, firsthand, we've talked about this with the admins, and there have been some projects, smaller projects that have been more directly aimed at some of these scientific, different scientific directions, and the people in the technical database were contacted, but for very specific projects. So it is being used, but like Mikael said, it's being used as much as it is possible with the current background in project management. Now, for a big project like what the person in the question is referring to, the whole city, is something that would first have to be backed up by you know, resources either be it funding, like Michael said, you know, enough funding to buy all the resources, or, you know, a whole country that would dedicate their resources and their trade, outside trade, just to get the resources to build this. So this means that, you know, before these technical database and all these people can be utilized in any way, there has to be, you know, projects of pretty large proportions be set in motion, and, you know, a lot of resources. So that's kind of what we're all hoping for, but it's going to take a lot.
Right. I think we can also give a reference point from Paradise or Oblivion to this one. Will be included in the description of the video later on. And I think we are going to use that same reference point to another question, perhaps. But anyway, next question. What size would each home or apartment be in a TVP city? From Tom Brent, Dallas. Well, the determining factors of what the size of each apartment or home will be in TVP city will be based on what is possible, what can be provided in sense of materials and design options, and of course it would need to fit that person's or the people who live in that apartment, their needs. So those are the factors that will determine the size and the shape, to an extent, and interior design of an apartment or a home.
I would just like to briefly add, because in the background I already hear the next question to this question, which is, what if I want a mansion with 36 rooms and 35 kitchens and whatnot? The answer to that is, you can build it yourself somewhere, to wherever you want. But, you know, this resource-based economy is not something that we're going to twist people's arms into. Okay, I think there is going to be more than enough people that, you know, would like to be a part of you know, a city or a society like that. And if people will just want to build mansions with their own hands somewhere, they're more than welcome to do so. Yeah.
If we're referring to resource-based economy, I don't think that would happen. People would more likely already be in the state of mind that they would understand that they do not need a mansion. So the key word here is need, and I think I've said this before, but in today's society, the average person is so comprehensively conditioned by constant hammering of advertisement and marketing that they are no longer capable of distinguishing the difference between a need and a want.
Yep.
And with that, I think we can move to the next question. Do you see more skilled communities? No.
There's one.
Yeah. Is the Venus Project the only solution to our problems? What about the other social movements? From Darwin Tatsura. No, it's not the only proposed solution to our problems. And first of all, TVP is not a movement, it's an organization. But, and this is strictly my personal comment, I haven't seen any other movement or organization propose a holistic solution to the problems that humanity and the biosphere are facing right now. Invariably, they all try to hold on to some area of the socioeconomic system that is in the background. That system is basically the causality of our problem. So because they are trying to hold on to the existing system or some parts of it, if we would take that approach, we would inevitably face the same catalog of problems that we have today. Any other input for that?
Nope.
Okay. Next one. Do you see more skilled communities developing out of the Venus project? Well, think tanks, as Peter Joseph calls his Global Redesign Institute.org, for the sharing of skilled scientists and engineers to start to discuss the scope of feasible future planning. From Marc Legere, Boston, MA.
Yeah, this is a question that we've talked about quite a bit before, and it's basically not very clear as to what Marc was trying to ask. So I'm gonna try and answer this. So developing out of the Venus projects, I'm not sure what he means, but if there is going to be within the Venus project, there's going to be a lot of teams of people, but not just think tanks, but also, you know, scientists and engineers that are actually going to be creating, doing stuff, building stuff. So there is going to be a lot of different teams that are going to be doing this. That's for sure. But if you think, if the question is meant developing out of the Venus project as far as completely different organizations, then my answer would be no, at least not in the sense that the Venus project would want that. But of course, people are free to do whatever they want. So there is definitely a lot of teams out there right now that are not in the Venus project, and they are skilled, and they are, you know, thinking about things, and they are doing things, and we can't really prevent that. What we can do is try and get in contact with them, and maybe, you know, collaborate with them if they're willing.
Once again, I would like to add the urgent necessity of project management. You know, 500 think tanks, brilliant people, are of no value if they are not interconnected, if they cannot share, if they cannot cooperate. So it doesn't make sense to let hundreds of think tanks develop separately. So then there's no valuable outcome from that, I'm sure of.
Right, and you can see that in all you have to look at is university projects and things like that. You have different countries having similar projects. Let's say they are studying protein folding or something to that extent to understand cancer development. But these entities are not sharing all the information from their research. But not only that, they may actually, you know, intentionally be competing, which is, you know, backwards to what would actually produce the best possible result, which is collaboration. And for this particular question, we will also reference a particular section from Paradise or Bolivian, which will be linked to the description section of the video on YouTube. And then the last question, which we will be addressing. There were some questions that will be redirected to Jacques. So, what kind of promotional game would be used for TVP? Like maybe something that would show a day in the life of an RBE citizen, from Roy.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Basically, we've officially we've had quite a few people volunteer as far as ideas and trying to develop some kind of a game that would be resource-based economy oriented or TVP oriented. But for now there is no real project, actual project that's being done right now. So basically anything that we say right now is mere speculation. So we did quite a bit of speculating as well, so we can share a couple of our ideas with you. And if you know somebody that's actually a programmer or a computer designer or whatever, they would definitely be welcome to work with the Venus project and try and get something off the ground. So we were kind of kicking back and forth some ideas. So maybe something in line with civilization, something where we can where we can show like how the whole social structure would evolve over time, perhaps. Or, what were the other ideas, guys? Civilization is my favorite. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's. I guess civilization would be an example of resource management and the macro structure of resource-based economy. But then you have MMO games that are more in the micro level, meaning individual. So I imagine there could be a massive multiplayer online game where you could control a character from first-person aspects and travel from different RBE city to another and see how they work and actually kind of like participate in the society on a simulation perspective.
Yeah, well, that's just something we came up, of course. So if you have anyone that's serious about this, you can contact us on admin@thevenusproject.com or admin@tvpactivism.com. And if you have this person's contact, or if you can get the person to contact us and send us a CV, and as much information as possible, that would be great.
All right. So there are 6 questions that we determined that will be forwarded to Jacques and Roxanne. What do you guys think? Should we briefly read these so people know that they will be addressed?
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay, so first one that will go to them is Jacques. In Series 1, Disc 2 lecture, you mentioned that your concept of respect changed, referring to what your parents taught you compared to the real world. Can you explain in more detail how and in what areas your concept of respect changed from Jaime, Peru? And the next one is, I want to know if Fresco have changed the way he thinks about his initial ideas concerning TVP. If the answer is yes, which have been the biggest mistakes he have found on the project and the actual solutions? Sorry by my English, I'm Spanish speaker from Bogota. Next one. Silly question. If someone that wanted to help TVP that suddenly wins a lottery jackpot, in what would be more efficient? Funding the film, buying lots of materials like the best that money can buy for offer, starting sustainable village research, or paying ads for TV? From Nitro Forano, Portugal. Is the full motion picture you are working on will bring profit, or hopefully at least, there are volunteers and the producer who are supporting the movie with donations and or investments. How will the profit be shared between producer, TVP, and volunteers? So I'm assuming basically how where the possible profits from the major motion picture will be funneled to. And those will be, of course, forwarded to Jacques and Roxanne. Okay, and that's it for this Q&A session. We will post a new moderator on Monday, and it will be open until the Monday of the week of the next Q&A session. And
yeah, it's going to be open till the 29th of July, and then we're going to close it, and then the next Q&A is going to be on the August 4th on Sunday.
all right. So with that, take care, everyone, and until next time.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. See you guys.